Police! Stay where you are! Stay where you are, police! Madam, is your phone missing?
Have you got a phone? Oh, no, it's not
Stay
me.
there, police. At this point, you're under arrest for theft. The reason I'm arresting you is we just found a stolen phone on you, and I've witnessed you put your hand in that big...
It looks like a simple arrest. One man on the pavement, a stolen phone on the ground, and undercover officers moving in. But this scene is just one frame in a much bigger picture. Because in London, phone theft isn't rare, it's relentless. Every 7 minutes, another device is stolen. That's more than 80,000 phones a year, worth an estimated £50 million on the black market. It happens everywhere, outside busy tube stations, in cafes, on double-decker buses, even on the very steps of Parliament. Thieves on mopeds, e-bikes, or simply on foot strike in seconds, blending back into the city before victims even realize what's gone. And behind every snatch is a supply chain. Phones aren't just resold in street markets, they're packed, shipped, and moved through international routes, ending up in North Africa, the Middle East, and Asia, where demand is huge and profits soar. For Londoners, it feels like an epidemic. For gangs, it's a low-risk, high-reward industry. And for police, it has become one of the hardest battles on the capital's streets. This is the story of London's £50 million phone theft crime wave. London is facing what police have called an epidemic of mobile phone theft. The numbers alone are staggering. According to the Metropolitan Police, almost 80,000 phones were reported stolen in the capital in 2023, the equivalent of one every 7 minutes. That means more than 200 thefts every single day. The financial impact is estimated at £50 million a year. And what makes it even more concerning is that this crime wave is not hidden. It happens in broad daylight in the busiest parts of the city, right in front of commuters, shoppers, and tourists. Certain boroughs have become clear hotspots. Westminster is the worst hit, with more than 13,500 phones stolen in just 12 months, a rise of over 20% compared to the previous year. It has earned the unwanted title of the most dangerous part of the country for mobile phone theft. Nearby boroughs like Camden, Lambeth, Hackney, and Suffolk also feature at the top of the list, areas that combine heavy footfall, tourist attractions, and busy nightlife. The methods are as bold as they are simple. Thieves strike on foot, weaving through crowds and pulling devices from people's hands. Others operate on mopeds or high-powered e-bikes, riding up onto pavements, grabbing phones, and speeding away before anyone has a chance to react. Victims often describe the same experience. One moment the phone is in their hand, the next it's gone. A senior Met police officer summed it up bluntly. This isn't petty crime, this is organized theft on an industrial scale. Videos shared online show just how quickly it happens. Riders, often masked or wearing helmets, can be seen snatching phones from people crossing at traffic lights or even sitting at cafe tables. And the geography of the problem shows a striking contrast. In central London, thousands of phones vanish every month, but in rural areas, reports are rare. Police data from outside the capital shows that in some counties, there are only a handful of thefts each year. The divide makes one thing clear: this is a London problem above all else. The hotspots also reflect the rhythm of the city. Oxford Street, Covent Garden, Camden Market, Shoreditch, and London Bridge have all been named by police as key hunting grounds. These are places filled with tourists and commuters, people often distracted by maps, shopping bags, or conversations. Thieves thrive on those distractions. What makes this epidemic more alarming is that it's not just about losing a device. Inside each phone is personal data, photographs, emails, banking apps, and digital IDs. Once criminals have access, the damage multiplies. Victims have reported losing savings within minutes as stolen devices are hacked and bank accounts drained. The public frustration has been growing. London's Mayor, Sadiq Khan, has faced questions over why the capital has become so dangerous for something as simple as holding a phone in public. Critics have branded London the phone mugging capital of Europe. In response, the mayor has promised a tougher approach, combining undercover policing with new technology to make stolen devices harder to resell. But at street level, the numbers speak for themselves. Tens of thousands of Londoners and countless visitors are now victims each year, and behind every theft is not just an opportunistic thief, but increasingly a network moving phones off the streets and into international markets. This is no longer about opportunism, it's about organized crime exploiting London's busiest streets, turning a simple snatch into a global trade worth millions. In London, mobile phones don't just go missing, they vanish. Thieves have refined their methods into something fast, efficient, and often invisible until it's too late. The classic street pickpocket is still common. A thief will follow a distracted pedestrian, usually with their phone in their hand or slipping into a pocket, and wait for the right moment. A small push in the crowd, a quick reach, and the phone is gone before the victim notices. Police say this method is used heavily around Oxford Circus and Leicester Square, where tourists unfamiliar with the city are easy prey. But the real change has come with mopeds and e-bikes. In boroughs like Westminster and Camden, masked riders sweep through crowded pavements. They ride up onto curbs, snatch phones directly out of people's hands, and accelerate away before anyone can react. Videos captured by bystanders and CCTV show just how quick it is. A single hand extends, the phone is lifted, and within 2 or 3 seconds, the rider has disappeared into traffic. Detectives describe it as surgical. There's no confrontation, no warning, just speed, precision, and the certainty that the victim has almost no chance of stopping it. Even if someone gives chase, the riders know the streets better than anyone. They cut down side roads, jump red lights, and are gone long before police cars can respond. For the gangs, Apple iPhones are the main target. Police say around 80% of stolen devices are Apple products. The reason is simple: iPhones hold their value. They can be resold abroad for hundreds of pounds each, even if they are locked. For criminals, they are safer and more profitable than drugs. The stolen phones don't just stay in London. Investigations have revealed how devices are quickly collected, wrapped in foil to block tracking signals, and moved to storage houses before being shipped overseas. The Undercover documentary revealed that thousands of phones were traced to North Africa, particularly Algeria, where demand for second-hand iPhones is high. Others have been tracked further afield to markets in Asia and the Middle East. What looks like petty theft on the street is actually feeding a global supply chain. One of the ringleaders, Zakaria Sajki, ran his base in Cricklewood less like a gang hideout and more like a logistics hub. Phones were stacked, logged on spreadsheets, and prepared for export. Detectives later found records of over 5,000 stolen devices linked to his network. This shows why the problem has become so entrenched. For the thieves on bikes, it's quick money. For organizers like Saki, it's big business. The profit margins rival those of drug trafficking, but with far less risk. Unlike drugs, a stolen iPhone doesn't draw suspicion at airports or shipping hubs. Hidden among legitimate cargo, it looks harmless. And as police pointed out, there's another reason the gangs are emboldened: low conviction rates. Out of tens of thousands of reported thefts, only a fraction result in arrests, and an even smaller number make it to court. For many thieves, the odds are stacked in their favor. London has become the perfect hunting ground. Crowded streets, distracted commuters, and endless streams of tourists create opportunity after opportunity. Add in global demand and organized logistics, and the city has become Europe's epicenter for phone theft. For the victims, it happens in seconds. For the gangs, it's an industry worth millions. And for the police, it's a battle that is only just beginning. For years, phone theft in London felt unstoppable. Victims reported their losses, but the trail usually went cold within minutes. By the time police arrived, the thieves were long gone, and the devices were already on their way into the underground market. But in 2024, the Metropolitan Police shifted strategy. Instead of waiting for reports to come in, they went undercover. Plainclothes officers began patrolling the worst-hit areas. Westminster, Camden, Hackney, Southwark, blending in with the same crowds that thieves preyed on. Some disguised themselves as tourists with phones in their hands, others simply shadowed known hotspots. The difference was immediate. Arrest videos released by the Met show how quickly these operations unfolded. One man snatched a device near Oxford Circus. Within seconds, 2 officers had him pinned on the pavement, the stolen phone lying beside him. Another was caught in Soho, where plainclothes officers moved in the moment he pocketed a phone. These arrests were important not just for recovering devices, but for gathering intelligence. Each thief carried clues, phone numbers, contacts, drop-off points, even receipts for courier services. Detectives began piecing together a bigger picture. The thefts weren't random, they were part of a network. That network centered around Zacharias Psyche, a 31-year-old based in Cricklewood. Police described his operation as industrial. More than 5,000 stolen phones passed through his hands, each one logged, packaged, and prepared for shipment abroad. His associate, Ahmed Abdul Hakim Banafi, acted as his lieutenant, handling day-to-day logistics. Together, they funneled thousands of stolen devices out of London, primarily to Algeria, where resale prices were high. Surveillance showed the efficiency of their system. Phones stolen in Westminster were collected within hours, taken to storage flats, wrapped in foil to block signals, and moved through courier services. At Heathrow, one cargo shipment was intercepted containing over 1,000 foil-wrapped phones. Inside Saki's home, detectives later uncovered spreadsheets listing thousands of IMEI numbers, the unique IDs of stolen devices. It was clear this was more than street crime, it was organized trafficking. Other arrests added to the picture. Riyad Mamouni, 25, and Nazi Charitia helped process and move stolen phones through the network. Each played a role in ensuring devices disappeared quickly from London streets and into international markets. And then there were the frontline thieves. Sonny Stringer became one of the most notorious. Riding a high-powered Sur-Ron e-bike, he stole 24 phones in a single night, weaving across the city of London, grabbing handsets at speed, and vanishing down side streets. CCTV tracked his spree, showing just how industrial the thefts had become. When he was finally caught, officers found him carrying a bag stuffed with more than 20 stolen devices. These operations proved one thing: this was not opportunistic crime, it was a conveyor belt. Street thieves like Stringer fed the pipeline, handlers like Mamouni and Charetia kept it moving, and organizers like Sajki and Panafi exported it for profit. By the end of the crackdown, more than 750 stolen phones were recovered in just 6 months, and several ringleaders were in custody. Sajki received 8 years in prison. Panafi was sentenced to 4 years and 8 months, while Stringer and other prolific thieves were also jailed. For the first time in years, the Met could point to results. But even as judges handed down sentences, detectives warned the demand remains, the networks adapt, and for every gang taken off the streets, others wait to take their place. By the summer of 2024, phone theft in London wasn't just a policing issue, it had become a political crisis. Headlines branded the capital the phone mugging capital of Europe, and public frustration was growing. For Londoners, it felt as if you couldn't even hold a phone in public without becoming a target. Tourists were warned to be vigilant, and businesses complained the epidemic was damaging the city's reputation. At the center of the storm was London's mayor, Sadiq Khan. Critics accused him of letting the problem spiral out of control. Opposition councillors demanded urgent action, pointing to Met Police figures showing tens of thousands of thefts every year and conviction rates that barely scratched the surface. Khan admitted the scale of the crisis, but promised a new approach. He pledged more undercover officers, more patrols in hotspots, and closer coordination between City Hall and the Metropolitan Police. His message was blunt: we are going to turn the tide. Part of that effort relied not just on policing, but on technology companies themselves. The logic was simple. If stolen phones became worthless, the gangs would lose their business model. In June 2024, Google announced a major update for Android phones. A new theft detection lock would sense when a device was snatched and lock automatically. Even if thieves cut internet access, the phone would stay protected by an offline lock. And factory reset protection made it far harder to wipe the device and sell it on. Khan hailed the move as an important step and urged Apple to follow with similar measures. The hope was that making stolen devices unprofitable would squeeze the international markets where thousands of phones were resold. At the same time, the Metropolitan Police expanded its plainclothes deployments. More than 750 stolen phones were recovered in the first half of 2024 alone, many directly from undercover stings in Westminster and Camden. Detectives described it as a shift from reactive policing to proactive hunting, watching, waiting, and striking before phones could disappear into the pipeline. But critics argued these measures came too late. For years, victims had been left with little chance of recovery, while gangs operated openly on mopeds and e-bikes. An Evening Standard editorial warned that London risked normalizing theft as part of daily life unless sentences were tougher and prosecutions more consistent. Pressure also grew in Parliament. After several MPs themselves had phones stolen near Westminster, the Commons Whip's office issued a warning. Colleagues should be aware that a number of MPs have had their phones snatched within the vicinity of the estate. Be wary when not on the estate. If even politicians surrounded by armed officers weren't safe, ordinary Londoners wondered what hope they had. Campaigners began calling for phone theft to be treated not as petty crime, but as serious, organized crime. The evidence was clear. Stolen phones weren't just being resold at markets in Camden or Brixton, they were being shipped abroad in bulk, feeding an international black market economy. Still, there were signs of progress. Videos of undercover stings went viral on social media, showing plainclothes officers sprinting through crowds to tackle suspects or blocking thieves with unmarked cars. Each clip was proof that the Met was striking back. For City Hall, those images mattered. They were a message to Londoners that something was finally being done. But behind the headlines, police warned that the problem was far from solved. As long as international demand remained, gangs would keep trying, and that meant the fight against London's £50 million phone theft industry was only just beginning. By the end of 2024, the Met had enough evidence to take the biggest players in London's phone theft epidemic to court. What had once looked like scattered street crime now stood exposed as a multi-million-pound organized network. At Isleworth Crown Court, prosecutors laid out the scale. They showed how Zakaria Saki, working out of Cricklewood, ran an industrial-style hub where more than 5,000 stolen phones were processed, logged, and prepared for export. His right-hand man, Ahmed Abdul Hakim Banafi, managed shipments abroad, primarily to Algeria. Together, they turned thousands of London thefts into profit streams stretching across Europe and North Africa. The evidence was overwhelming. Detectives had seized cargo shipments at Heathrow containing over 1,000 foil-wrapped phones. They had spreadsheets of IMEI numbers and weeks of surveillance proving Saki and his associates were running what one officer described as a logistics chain for crime. In court, Sajki was handed the heaviest sentence, 8 years in prison. Banafi followed with 4 years and 8 months. Two of their key associates, Nazi Charatia and Riyad Mamouni, also received prison terms for conspiracy to handle stolen goods. Each conviction was another crack in the supply chain that had funneled stolen phones out of London. On the front line, prolific thieves faced justice too. Sonny Stringer, the e-bike rider who stole 24 phones in one night, was sentenced to 2 years in prison. The judge told him his crimes symbolized the speed and boldness of a new generation of offenders. Others, like Oliver Brady, caught after stealing from a blind commuter, and Amari Scott, traced through CCTV, received multi-year sentences at the Old Bailey. Even smaller players were not ignored. Kadin Nasser, arrested in Soho by plainclothes officers, was jailed for 30 weeks. Several asylum seekers caught moving stolen phones through the chain received community orders, curfews, and mandatory rehabilitation programs. For victims, these convictions brought some measure of closure, but police admitted it was only part of the picture. Sachi's network had moved thousands of phones, but detectives believed that represented just a fraction of the total stolen each year. The crackdown also sparked a wider debate. Should phone theft be treated as petty crime, punished with short sentences, or should it be classed alongside organized criminal activity with longer terms and more aggressive disruption? Many in the Met argued for the latter, warning that as long as phones remained as valuable as cash, new gangs would take the place of those behind bars. On London streets, the thefts have not stopped. Police data still shows thousands of phones vanishing every month, particularly in Westminster and Camden. But the undercover operations have shifted the balance. Victims now see arrests in real time, with videos of plainclothes officers tackling thieves spreading across social media. And technology continues to evolve. With Google's new theft lock features and pressure on Apple to expand similar protections, the hope is that stolen devices will eventually lose their resale value. If the international market collapses, the incentive collapses too. For now, though, Londoners remain cautious. Tourists clutch their phones tighter on Oxford Street. Commuters step away from pavements before checking messages. And MPs in Westminster glance over their shoulders, knowing they too have been targets. The £50 million phone theft industry has been exposed but not eradicated. The arrests and convictions marked a turning point, yet the cycle of theft, resale, and profit continues. This is the reality of London today, a city where every 7 minutes another phone vanishes, and where the fight to end the crime wave is far from over.